And I guess we have to do testing soon as well.
Yeah. I've just gone live actually by accident, so we're gonna have to we're gonna have to sort of wing this a little bit. Okay, sorry about this, and I've also messed up the screen dimensions annoyingly. So that's all good, isn't it?
Yep.
It's all great stuff. And right, well, welcome to this show. While I fix up these while I fix up this screen thing, maybe Zarek, maybe if you want to give a quick recap or a bit of an intro to what we're going to do today.
Yeah. So, um, our goal is to sort of be able to have this upload content thing live all the time. Um, but we've sort of been a little bit uncareful with our tokens. So we want to be able to reset your token in case someone saw your token, which people have done during these screencasts, whoever watches these. So that's part of what we're doing today, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the most important thing
Yeah.
that we're going to do
Uh,
today.
we also we also have, and I don't know if we'll do this at the end or throughout, but there's actually quite a few producty decisions that we need to start making and thinking about. Um, like we see here now, we're just willy-nilly listing all the content that is here. Should we do that? Should we not do that? Should we allow for making private content that only you and some friends of yours can see, or is everything public? Um, and we might want to look at some sort of rate limiting so that maybe you can't, like, you have to sign up with an email that you can control. Um, maybe there is a limit to how many users the system can have at this point. Maybe there's a limit to how much video or how much content a single user can upload to this place, and so on. That's just like scratching the surface a little bit on the producty
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. Well, I think like I think because we're let's say we're in stealth mode in terms of launch at this point. I think we're not even in private beta yet. I think we can afford to limit signups just to ourselves. You know,
Yep.
um, and then once we've got something that is, like you say, a bit more, yeah, a bit more polished, a bit more kind of, yeah, a bit more finished, a bit more like viable for another user to actually start adding content and making sense of the navigations, then we can open up to a few more discerning users that we can invite in.
Yep.
But I think it's very common in these kind of like private beta environments to have specific emails that you accept, so that we choose the users basically at this point.
Yep. So basically, I guess what you're saying is that we could,
We can claim
rather
our
than
users. We can claim our own
we
users
could
basically. Yeah.
we could do like this and like this, right? So basically, there's no sign up anymore.
We could do that. The other option is for us to sign up and then to say, well, there's only 3 signups allowed.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, Eric Ray and CMS,
Yep.
which I kind of
Um.
like because if the if the sign up, we could get super smart and say the sign up form. Oh, we're not ready yet. We're still in stealth mode. You've found us a bit. We're not fit for public company yet. But look at this YouTube channel and watch as we develop it.
Yeah,
So it could be a little bit of a marketing opportunity, Eric. Yeah.
it
So
could.
and we're doing product stuff now, you know.
This is true. Um, I want to start, however, with referring back to a conversation that I had with a colleague of mine, Sophie, a couple of weeks ago. And Sophie she's been with Ardoc for about a year,
Right. Right.
first as an intern,
Right.
and then she started in August as a full-time employee.
That's great. Great for Sophie. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's fun is how she got to work with Ardoc is a longer story, but that longer story short was that she developed her own Haskell-like language during her master's thesis.
Oh, okay.
And the point of that language was to look at the types in your system and then generate random data for property-based testing.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to know about that thesis, and then we need to talk, right? Because this is specs and property-based testing, and it's really cool, and so on. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, she's sort of made the swap from Haskell to Clojure, which is quite cool.
Yeah. Is she happy with it?
She seems very, very happy. She's a phenomenally happy person to be around and to have in the office.
Good.
So
Yeah,
yes, she
that's good.
seems. But the point was that we were talking about the code base at RDoc, which is, I guess, the production code base is approaching 150,000 lines of closure.
Right.
And
Right. Right.
for me, like we started out talking about how consistency is better than perfection. So I would rather have like consistent bad code than perfect bits of code, but they all are snowflakes, if this makes sense.
Sure. 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 Yeah.
Right? So you want to be able to navigate around the app and you recognize the same things, and there's yeah.
I think it's the design aesthetic is sort of the least surprising. Things should not surprise you. I think that's
Yeah.
the design aesthetic, isn't
Principle
it?
of least surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And we started talking about this because traditionally, RDoc has been, if you open up like the top folders of RDoc, it is API service persistent, which tells you about like the layers of the app, but it doesn't tell you about what the app is about. It's not
Right. Right.
structured according to domain.
Right.
And had I started like if I like with this project here, I think that perhaps the folder structure will be different so that we talk about, oh, here's users, here's content, here's something else.
Hmm.
But when I'm choosing, I would rather have this API services persistence structure and be consistent about it. Because right now we're sort of in a transition period where we have some parts are following this API blah 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 structure, and other parts are following more like domain verticals.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that makes it harder to sort of jump from one area of the code base to another because things are not where you want them to be or where you expect them to be.
Okay. Yeah. There are some exceptions, or there are lots of exceptions, maybe.
Yeah, exceptions
Yeah.
to the rules, right?
Yeah. 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 I think
And
it's
then
it's inevitable when you're dealing with a kind of don't want to say a legacy code base, but a code base a sustainable code base even. If you want to change direction towards a different shape, then
Yep.
you either say it's opt-in, or you have like a big down tools and everyone does it. And the last, it's often the thing that people will bike shed over. It's like the structure of since we're talking about this, like the structure of projects is a little bit, to me, a little bit like a class hierarchy or something, in that it's very difficult to get right, and it's very
Yes.
difficult to get right forever.
Yep.
Um, so I feel like you're right that having just general bags to put things in has a lot more sense than trying to be very kind of specific about folders that are narrow. But
Yep.
it's very domain specific, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think when you sort of decide to do these changes, it's quite important to, like, if you want to change something in such a large system, then you have to go about, you have to, it's very nice, at least, if you can manage to do the full change. So
Yes.
at some point, we had Composure as our routing library.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, it would be nice if we had rated instead because it's more data driven and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
There was like
Yeah.
reasons for that. And we did rewrite from write it, or sorry, from Composure to rate it, but then we made a very sort of concentrated effort over a couple of months to like be done with Composure so
Right.
that you don't
Right.
have like, oh, this
Right.
namespace is Composure, this is rated, and they don't really play well together and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it makes sense. You have to essentially have, you have to have the resolution, if you like, and the sort of persistence, the doggedness to, which is, I mean, like, if we're going to go on to a different vibe here, is that some people start projects and shape them up, and then are really uninterested in maintaining them.
Mm,
And other people will start a project and like to maintain it for 5-10 years.
yep.
Um, so yeah, a lot of it's to do with your personality type as well, I think. Yeah.
Yep. And so the more that Sophie and I discussed this, she told me that she'd read a book on psychology where there was something about programmers, developers, that they have some sort of a little bit more of this short-term memory. They're able to hold a little bit more in their short-term memory. And
So they can play computer better.
exactly.
Right.
But still, there is a limit to this. And then trying like with the principle of least surprise, it's like you see a function call and you can sort of, because you've seen it before, you don't have to sort of know, don't have to go into it to see what it does. You can sort of
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
this abstraction holds or this indirection holds. So having a code base
The
where
name
these
has a meaning, in
patterns,
other words. Yeah.
was that?
The name has a meaning.
Yes. And this is like what we like with Clojure. Regardless of whether you have a user or content or whatever, you can still just map over the lot of them.
Yeah.
It's not like user get properties and content get something else, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's always torture interoperating with Java in that sense, isn't it? That
Yep.
you start to look at, we do a lot of work with Kafka, and you start to look at some of the APIs for administrating the cluster and stuff like this, and oh my god, all of this data is like, it's inaccessible barring these incredibly long, complicated chains of data. So it's really horrible, in my opinion, to have all these
Yep.
things in objects that are hidden behind these APIs. And of course, you would tend to find that over time they're changing their API style. So some of them, like with the Java 8 and later stuff, they're starting to go with streaming and starting to go with futures and all this kind of stuff, and splitterators and all these things. But a lot of the other stuff is not, and it's very jarring to to deal with these APIs, which are
Yeah, and it's
essentially
like
all over the
there's so
place.
much
Yeah.
there's so much trivia that you have to remember, so you're just basically filling up your short-term memory
Yes,
with all
yes,
this stuff that's,
yes.
it's not even interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to know what are the offsets for this partition, please.
Yes.
Why isn't that just in a map somewhere?
Yep. I wanted to like so there's a thing that we talked about, Sophie and I, was
Right.
so imagine that you have a function foo that it just does a lot of stuff. So it becomes sort of long, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
you want to we like Uncle Bob told us that we shouldn't have really long functions, so let's make it shorter. So um and maybe you shouldn't listen to Uncle Bob. That's a different thing, but so you extract this. So you say bar with some parameters and you make, and now at least foo isn't all that long. But the problem here now is that even though you got two functions, they're still very tightly coupled together because
Yes.
um, there's no other way to compose. Like if you want foo to do something else, there's no really way. But also maybe bar is a bit too long, so you make baz, and then now you have now maybe this is good, right?
3 lines. Leave it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is now we got like really nice short functions, but
Yeah.
we haven't really achieved anything sort of architecturally other than given some name to some bits of code.
Yes. Yes.
And one of the things that you often this is it's very in my experience is very common that you see this kind of coding, and especially in sort of non-functional languages.
Mm, mm.
Um, Now, the problem here is that sometimes when you call foo, you want to have baz do something different,
Mm.
right? Depending on something. So what you end up doing is that you pass another parameter down here, and then you're going to have to pass that ah, all the way down here, and then x, and then here you can probably say like if x, then um, otherwise we do that.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, where this sort of becomes annoying is that, or where this sort of comes into your short-term memory is if you're looking at baz and you're seeing, okay, so if X, then I should do this, and if not, I should do this other thing. You now have to like keep in your short-term memory what X is at the point where you call foo with something and it's one. And then you have to track this all the way through this call stack, and that becomes
Mm.
very, very tedious.
Indeed. Yes.
So the way that one can fix this is that rather than calling bar here in the tail position, you say that foo returns what is effectively the parameters into bar. And you do the same here. And now you can do like you can thread this stuff. And then you don't need to pass this one. And then you can do bar, and then you can do baz with the extra X. And now you don't have to trace it through. And you also
Yes.
have, these are fully recomposable, if you will.
Yeah. 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 You've separated it out because it actually does something meaningfully different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now also this, I consider these like, these threads like those, they're sort of cheap. So now I could also, rather than having baz be a function that does this or that, I could, just make myself another thread with another implementation of baz that did that.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. That
Yeah.
sounds good. Yeah.
So Basically, make sure that you return values from your functions and then make it easier to compose them at the end.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like have it's kind of peculiar, isn't it? It's like, is there when is a function allowed to call another function? Is an interesting question, isn't it?
Yep.
And I'm not, it's kind of like in the ideal situation, you would just essentially have things, mapping over things, reducing things, and doing other bits and pieces, adding two numbers, whatever.
Yep.
And that's the way that you get good composition in your systems, isn't it? It's just by keeping the functions themselves fairly short and, of course, fairly pure, so that you can test each of the functions individually rather than as a sort
Yeah.
of composite whole.
Because what we very often see is that this last bit of this
Mm,
threading thing is a side effecting thing.
yeah, yeah,
And the way that we had it previously, then foo is side effecting and bar is side effecting because they all like call
yeah,
into baz eventually.
yeah. The way I tend to do it is that I'll have a wrapper that is side effecting, and then inside of it, I'll have the functions that are pure. So I can test the pure functions, and I can call those functions in the test. I can,
Yep.
I can spy on them or whatever. Um, but the outer wrapping function is the one that typically has a database or has some sort of thing that is not just data. It's got some complicated state attached to it. A
Yep.
queue or a database or a topic or a whatever. Yeah, those kind of things. Those kind of things to me, they should be kept really, really like local to that one function, and you should then essentially try and grab the data that you need from that complicated stateful thing and pass the actual data out to these other functions and get them to do their pure work. So it's this like, I mean, I think it's well known in the functional programming community as this, imperative shell functional call, which is essentially what we're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah. And if we go back to how this, let's see if we can do that real quick. If we go back to how this looked, something like this, we had the if here. And this is side effecting. Now, if you want to test this stuff, you end up having to mock out something like you mock out you like
Yeah.
the smell here is that you have to mock out baz
Hmm.
or whatever it ends up calling to be side effecting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if you're like to me, reaching for mocks is that is very much a sign that your app isn't structured nicely because
Yeah.
that should be at, as you say, at that imperative shell. That's where you do the side effecting stuff. But all like you should be able to test the logic without needing to mock out the side effects.
Yeah, the core of the system should be completely side effectless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally right.
Anyways,
Let's hope that we can live by those standards on this project, Eric.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we see it like this stuff here is basically you know, it is a threading pipe.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, just didn't write it as it.
Yeah, that's right.
Right, Eho, should we try to do this reset token thing then?
Yeah, so one thing that's worth just mentioning, I over the interim period while we've been away, we've had an upgrade on the website by our faithful admins. It's me and you. So so first of all, we got SSL installed, and also we had an Nginx installed as well. So that makes things a little bit simpler to manage from our side. So this is good. And the main thing, having SSL there means that we can actually think about having decent security between the browser and the client, and that's good because even if people, even if I think people should be able to visit websites without that visit itself being tracked. Um, so it's good that we have the SSL now, so that only very few people would ever know that you went there, which is
Hmm.
good. So yeah, and then obviously we've got the security aspects, but those security aspects are a little bit they're a little bit useless without SSL, because anybody could like just sniff those bits of information. So now we've got a lot more safety around our token exchanges and stuff like that. So I just wanted to give that little bit of background that we're kind of building up the base a little bit of the infrastructure.
Hmm. But then, since we've sort of shown our token around a lot, we
Yeah,
might want to provide some facilities for changing that token, right?
yeah, that would be good. Yeah,
Yeah.
because whoever signs up, they will need some sort of reset token.
Um, I guess that's kind of
That's the standard we're
it.
going with. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
So let's have a look at our sign up form.
Yeah, and take a little bit of inspiration from that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think another thing that we need to put on our to-do list soon is to stick all of this UI crap into separate namespace because it's like a little bit tedious with all this hiccup in this namespace. It's verbose.
Sure. Yeah.
So what do we want here? We want
The current token. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So the
right?
idea is you can only exchange a token that matches the email that you've signed up with, and that, of course,
And the token that you're giving,
the
right?
token that you've been given. Yeah.
Yeah. Because otherwise I could change your token, which would be sort of
Yeah.
like we need to provide the existing token.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So you have to have both those bits of information.
Yep.
Now, obviously, on our show here, we theoretically we can see the tokens and they can see the emails. So it's kind of like
Yep.
public information. But behind the doors, we can quickly reset that token, and nobody can ever snatch it away from us.
Exactly. Yep. That's our splendid UI. This is our email
I
and
think I
this is the
think the
token.
I can't see the labels on that on those.
I didn't make any labels.
I think we need a label because
Okay.
otherwise, we don't know which one to put in which, and that's kind of like not
Um,
so nice. Yeah. Yeah, we have this thing here, don't we, up above, like this. Whoops, a daisy. This div
yeah,
title.
we can do that. We can do better.
Yeah.
And we could even do like label for and stuff, but not right now.
Hmm.
What? Oh, this was. You should have seen this, Ray. I'm a bit disappointed now.
What?
I did a mistake.
What? You?
Yeah.
You're editing the wrong form.
Uh, why doesn't this change? That was interesting. Maybe it's
You're editing the sign up form rather than the reset token
yeah.
form.
That you could have at least have seen that.
Yeah. Okay. It's
I
still
think it was.
it's still kind of weird that it doesn't have those labels though on the sign up form actually. So
Yep. Uh,
I feel like we should probably do that. To be
yep.
nice to our future selves here. By which I mean like very quickly.
That looks better.
Looks a bit messy, but on the code side, but yeah,
It's not all that messy on the code side, is it?
sometimes you got things on one line, sometimes you got them on
Yeah.
different lines.
Yeah. Like that.
Yeah, I can read that a bit more easily now. Yeah,
Yep. And
yeah,
I think, okay, so let's, and then that's basically all we need there.
yeah.
Good. Now, and of course, if I do this and foo, it's going to get us there because
Yep.
we're posting to reset token,
Yep.
and we haven't defined what that is yet. So in our router or our handler down here, if we don't find what we're looking for, we basically just render the home page.
Hmm.
And I actually want to have this here. Uh, 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 yep. I just basically did the sign up thing.
You ditched the sign up thing.
No, I basically just, uh, there's some sort of symmetry here between the sign up form and the reset token form and the sign up handler and the reset token handler. So I basically took, you know,
Ah, okay.
um, yeah.
I think your parentheses are slightly off though, by the way, because you're doing.
You know what? I very often miss that one, but now it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's have a look at the handle sign up. So now we can do
It's an
handle reset token.
interesting case here where we definitely have some reuse between these two functions.
Yep.
We're going to do a foo and a baz here if we're not careful.
Yeah. What am I thinking there? Oh, this is interesting. This is very interesting. When
Well,
I'm
I'm thinking
looking
like the
at,
definition of user is very much the same thing, isn't it?
yep, but I'm also looking at this one. Now, you could argue that this handle sign up form, and this is a tangent going on here.
Sure,
Um, this handle sign up form is side effecting because it does transact to our database.
sure, yes.
Um, but it's also a side effecting insofar that or it's not referentially transparent because it asks for time.
It's a co-effect.
Is it a co-effect? Is that what it's
Yes,
called? Yeah.
yes. So you have
And
side
then,
effects is what you do to the world, and a
yeah.
co-effect is what you expect from the world.
Ah,
So you should rid them. You should rid your functions of both things. Yeah.
yes. And there was a discussion about this on Clojurian Slack, I think in the Clojure channel,
Okay.
where someone was like, "Hey, how can I redefine like Java methods because I have this thing with time." And then I jumped on that thread and I said, like, yeah, what you really want to do is you want to pass time in as a parameter
Yeah,
because
definitely. Yeah, yeah,
then, like in one way or another.
yes.
And then
Yeah,
my
this
my
is definitely non-reproducible and non-pure. This function, that's
yes,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Would be much
my
nicer if it
friend
was.
Martin also said then that a lot of the newer Java time facilities, they let you pass a clock.
Right.
And there is a clock factory, and in that clock factory, you can create a clock that is set to your time. So, right, you can say that the clock for this date time stuff is this instant or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest. I mean, I've kind of in the work I'm doing right now, I've gone a little stage further and made my own time oracles,
Yep,
um, because if you want, there's a very common problem with time, especially across distributed systems and coordinating time. You know, it's very difficult to keep times, very difficult to keep clocks in sync. So you might have heard that, like Google, for instance, invested in atomic clocks in their data
really.
centers. Yeah, they're one of the very few companies that do it, but they want to use time in a guaranteed kind of way. So they have, and this is for their for their distributed database, this spanner thing, and it uses atomic clocks, and it basically says, okay, because we're on atomic clocks, we know that we're always going to be in sync.
Yep,
Um, so we can afford to take that risk, which is kind of wild, because gaming engines, for example, what they do is they produce time. So servers, like if you're playing a game like, I don't know, um, Lethal, I don't know what is a game that people play.
I have
Uh,
no idea. I have like kids in the house, but I
yeah,
Valorant is something that they play, I
Valorant.
think.
Yeah, it's actually I can. Valorant is a really good example of this, where Valorant has 128 ticks per second, and that's on the real high end of performance, because they want to make sure that you haven't got what's called peaker's advantage. You can't see before someone else is coming out.
Right.
So so when they do that, they coordinate time from a central place. So yeah, so it's quite a common thing in the industry to have a shared source of time, or to have time under your control, and it's much better like that than this kind of stuff. So yeah, you're right. I mean, we've done a bad thing here, but
Yep. What we
we can remove it.
there's a couple of other bad things in this function as well, but what we done at work is that in essence we add a timestamp to the request or like a request like thing that we pass around to functions. So there's like, a user time thing, and then that becomes the same. Like if you're looking at time throughout the processing of a request, you always get the same timestamp, so it's easier to coordinate,
Yeah,
and you don't
M-
have to ask for time.
my guess is that this request itself probably has a timer on it,
Most likely, yes.
so it's probably already there.
Yep.
Maybe we should look at that just to see if there is, because if there is, if it's a standard like part of the request, like request,
Yep.
typically something like request time, I guess
Yep. We can
we
look
could
at
just
that.
use that. Yeah.
Um, let's because this is basically a lot of the same stuff, right? We can inspect the requests
Yeah,
when
yeah,
we
yeah.
work
Let's
with
do
this
that.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then the only thing that's different to there's a few things that are different here, because we don't have this next ID and stuff like that. We have to look up the user. Um, but in terms of like how we transact on the database and stuff like that, it's very much the same.
Yep.
So this is a
Um,
great example of that composition piece that we've just been discussing.
yep.
Did you know we were going to do this, Eric? And you sort of
No,
like
not really.
just
Let's see. So basically we have this.
yeah.
And then we also have token,
Which must be just token, unless we're doing something really weird.
right?
Yeah.
And then what we want to do now, and here's another shortcoming, I think, of the way that we've done this so far, is that
The database is a global variable. Yeah.
exactly right. So there's no way for us to pass in a different database to try, like,
Yeah, we
if you
can't if
were to
the
write a test
database
for
is
this,
random. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
We could
Yeah,
seed this function with a database that doesn't have the token, one which has, and so on and
yes,
so forth.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've we're terrible programmers.
Yes. So I guess what we want to do now, and I want to cheat a little bit because I think we have it here. Um, where is it? Handle upload. So, haha. You see? Did you see what I found here?
No.
I was looking for, like, okay, we need to find the user by
Ah,
the
yeah.
email,
Okay, you've
and
already got it. Okay.
I already got it. So now we could probably do like this.
Uh, Buy token and email. Token email. Look at that. It's exactly. It's
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah.
This is this is also cool, right? Because we've done some, like, given some name to some stuff, and then things are like available to us, and we can
Yeah.
compose them in just different ways,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which I kind of like. And then so if we have a user, then we go ahead and then we need to reset the token on the user, right?
Yes.
Um, and then the
I think we just need to do what
otherwise,
it said there, which is like make a user. It's almost exactly the same thing as we have user there. It's just assocking a different token on it, isn't it? And then we just
yeah.
transact the DB and return the user.
Let's see what the transact does. I'm sorry now that my editor is a bit. Yeah, so this just adds a user. So
Ah, yeah.
this function
Okay.
isn't good enough for
That's
us.
not good. No.
No. So that needs to be fixed.
Mm.
But
It's a bit of a general thing. It should transact. It doesn't have a parameter of like add,
what?
update, or delete. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a bit too early, this one. But
Well, we're having to do. Oh, I see. Okay.
so if we have a user, we
Hmm.
also need to have a new token. We don't have to make, well, yeah. And then we need the timestamp as well. And if we have a user, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are other alternatives there, but this will work for the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Just doing like this. I tend to sort of do this very sort of stepwise
Yeah. It makes
first
sense.
time
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
and then once I sort of figured out where I'm going, then I can thread or like do less
Yeah.
bindings, I
Yeah. I think
guess.
it's a classic approach. Yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
this is. again, it's more natural for us to poke at the stick a little bit like this, poke it with a stick a little bit like this, and then we can clean it up a little bit later. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we doing here? What we are, so we're updating the collection, and this one becomes hard. And this is where,
I think we're
because
we're ASOCing in, aren't we? Aren't we ASOC in user X?
no, because user is still a list.
Is it? Okay.
Yes.
That's a fundamental
A fundamental
problem.
flaw.
Fundamental fuck up.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I think we should
let me,
be ASOCing it, and then oh my
so
god.
now we're mapping, um, so we're mapping over all the users in the thing.
Oh my god. Okay.
This is so ugly. I know it's ugly
It's okay.
because it's
Okay.
basically a replace in a list, right?
I know what it is, but it's like, oh my god, this is so bad. But okay.
Okay.
uh,
If the ID of I just want it to work, and then we can um, fix it later.
it's the uh,
Of
it's the greatest lie of all programmers.
no, it isn't. This should work.
Well, is it though? Because our users the input to this, isn't it the whole collection the input?
Yeah, so yeah, we're updating. Oh, sorry, this should be update user like that.
Right, right. That's what it is, yeah. Hmm. I think you should do a map V, by the way. And the reason for that is that you probably know this, that if you don't do it like map V, you'll end up with a list, which then when you do a conj, it will go to the beginning.
Yes, that's a very good point, which is an interesting one. And then I guess we can say that we return the new user. Otherwise, we return nil. And then we could actually do. And then
Yeah.
what's it complaining about now? Oh, no, it shouldn't be complaining. There we go. Yeah.
Okay.
So
This
that
is
was that one. So now we need the reset token um,
page. Yeah.
page, which is basically the same as token.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's basically just token.
It's just token, yeah.
Yeah. It's actually a little bit different. Um, because we said that if we do this successfully, then we return a user. If we can't find a user by that email and that token, then we return nil.
Mm-hmm.
So if user,
No, otherwise we get an error. Yeah. Don't we have an error handler to do this?
Yeah, maybe. But you cheating.
Okay.
And then, so we try reset token form. So now we should, hopefully it doesn't blow up. And also we get you're cheating, right?
Yes.
Didn't blow
Wow.
up. And
Worked
we,
first time. Would be nice to look at
and
the request, by the way. That would be quite nice while we're doing this you're cheating thing. So we can grab
yep.
this timestamp if we can. That would be quite nice.
So we just reload this thing. Yes. And so blah, blah, blah. There is blah, 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 blah. There is actually no timestamp on it.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yep.
Hmm. Kind of surprised by that, to be honest, but there we go. Okay.
Yep. But this is where, you could do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then while we're sort of depending on, I guess this is our top level thing because we basically have the handler like this. And we could associate, either we associate the database onto the request or we make sure that we always uh, pass the database into these functions here.
Right. I mean, to me, having the database on the request makes a lot of sense
Sure.
because it's like the least, the least disruptive thing.
Yeah. Although you could also argue sort of that, the request is a request, and then this thing has to have a request and a database. It's sort of more, the more you start messing with like overloading stuff that is the request, the more perhaps like magic goes on. But let's go for that
Yeah.
because then we have this one and
We can just use keys on the rec, by the way, at this point,
yeah,
which is quite nice. Yeah.
like that. And then
What do you think about this? I know this is a sort of, well, it's a debatable point. I guess, yeah, I guess what you're saying here is we're only going to dereference the database when it's needed. Because we know that it's an atom at this point. That's the thing that's a bit, also a bit off in terms of like leaking the implementation, you know?
Yeah, that the database is an
But
atom
if
thing.
you are socked at DB, then it would be
Yeah, but then you can't swap it, right? Because what you could do is that um, we have this query one somewhere.
what I'm thinking is that whatever asks for the DB, it knows that it's an atom and it can do
Yeah,
the
that was the thing, right?
dereferencing.
You could do like this,
Yes.
and then uh, yes,
Yeah, and the only thing that's leaking out here is you're using this swap thing in line as a sort of temporary countermeasure.
yeah. So yeah, this is scary now. So and this, what does this look like? Right. So that one shouldn't have something along these lines.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, because now it's only the database implementation
Yes. Yes.
that knows, and then basically our transact should have a conj on it.
What?
So
Oh, you're
then,
passing the function in that does the thing. You mean?
yeah, so then we
Oh
could
yeah.
do
Yeah. Yeah.
transact db user and then this thing.
Yeah. You've got transacts misspelt, unfortunately. But
Thank
apart
you.
from that, yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's really nice. Yeah.
and then transact, and then this is conj. And then this is
F.
something like this.
Yeah. 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 Right. We're going a bit late now, so
Yep. Should we
we
just
need
leave it
to.
at that for now?
Let's just make sure it's working,
Oh,
and then we can leave it at that.
yep. So let's see. This works. Just want to see that this still works. Oh, haha.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Uh, so 174. Uh, yeah. So this. No,
Yeah,
that's
but it
where
needs
it
to
is
just
from.
pass DB. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, there we go.
There we go.
And let's just also see that this works, and it does, and I can watch episode one. Yes. So most of the stuff now works.
Okay, so this is getting interesting now. So we're basically at the point where we've got SSL. We can sign up. We've got some ability to reset the tokens. We haven't quite
Yep.
proven that yet. We'll do that next week. Actually,
Yep.
we're going to be live on Sunday, aren't we?
We are going to be live on
So we
Sunday.
can we
Yes.
can follow up on Sunday with this one.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good session.
Good.
It's when we're back after a little while, it's always a little bit of time to refresh the old bonds to see what we've been doing.
Yep.
And I think probably my guess is that we're kind of definitely saying this now is that, well, I think we'll finish this round of functions and then we'll have a couple of episodes, or at least one episode of refactoring and reorganizing. And of course, we're in no hurry, so I think that would be a good moment. I think we said that. How many lines is in this namespace now?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's the Norris numbers again, right? So
Yeah, I think we said
we're
about
coming up.
200. So we're
Yeah, so
definitely
it's about time to
it's
start
just
splitting a
over.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I sort of feel this a little bit when navigating back and forth that
yeah,
there's a lot of navigation going on now.
yeah. So I think 200 lines. It's time for us to we'll finish off this little bit of functionality to get the tokens working or to prove it's
Yep.
working, and then we'll do a little bit of refactoring, and maybe we do a little bit of um, maybe we do little bit of like specking or testing or a bit of both.
Yes.
So we'll have a little quality break because we're it's it's kind of funny to me that we've got this like function where it's very tempting just to go ahead and add more functions and just keep going, but
Yep.
since we're this is just it's a slow build, it's a slow rollout, it's a slow build up. We can afford to take our sweet time and really crunch it down and make it nice.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm really it would be really nice to get some tests on some of this stuff, right? And just if we can if we can do one more thing before we go,
Sure, yeah.
that would be so what am I missing here? So transact.
Should be a sock, I think.
No, it should be update, and which it
Ah, it should be
is.
update, yeah. Mm.
But there's something wrong with this one. There's something wrong with our transact function.
Yeah, the problem is that with swap, you can have quite a lot of different functions and all this kind of stuff. So we probably need a bit of a variadic thing.
Yes. So we need this, and we also need, for now, this.
Okay.
And what I wanted to do now, this one should be good. Um, um, uh, right? And then we can say replace, and then new user, I think. What's it?
The problem is that you need like a partial on replace, I think.
No, that's what I don't think we do. Because
Ah, yeah,
replace is
yeah, yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
it's going to be called as what is
It's going to be
this thing?
called like that.
In an
Yeah.
update context, right? And it's going to, this is why I put the XS in front here,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because we're swapping with an update with a function that gets the collection as the first thing and then our
Mm.
thing as the next thing.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
basically,
then that actually means that this is stuff that I should be testing. We don't need this. Because what's going to happen now is our replace, this is going to be our replace thing, right?
yes, yeah.
And it's going to get whatever's under collection in the DB as its first parameter, which is going to be the
Yes.
users.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's going to get the new user as the second argument.
Yeah, yeah.
So there. But again, this is like this is stuff that would have been really nice to have as a like have a test around just to see that this whole thing works.
Hmm. Yeah, I
But
mean,
we can do
obviously
that.
you can do it in the REPL as well, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. That's true. Shall we
you're just
leave?
using a random atom. You don't have to pass the.
No, that's true. And I mean, there is a replace in closure. There you go. That's why it's being annoying. Um, just see that that works, right? And then we have, yeah, so that one works.
Yeah.
And then if we say that we have a def foo, which is an atom of user with this.
Mm-hmm.
Now transact foo user replace.
Oops, misspelling of replace there. But yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
So now we should have a new atom with
The new
the
value.
name being bar.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Doesn't transact give us something back?
No, it doesn't, it seems.
No.
Yeah. But it worked.
It didn't actually.
No, it didn't. How fascinating. Let's leave that for next episode.
Fine. After all that. After all that bullshit. Okay. Yeah.
It's because the replace works,
Replace does
right?
work, yeah. Yeah.
And
Normally the thing says, it should take an argument that applies f to x. Applies f over, like you say, the results with x.
yeah,
Mm.
This is fascinating to me. I can't be debugging this now. I'm done.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
We're getting on. Time is late.
Yep.
Let's wrap up. I think we've done enough. Um, and we'll all have recovered a bit more by Sunday. We'll have a fresh head. We can fix
Yes.
this up. Yeah. All right. Cheers, Eric.
See ya.
Let's just stop the stream now. Yeah.